Before we start with the video, I would like you guys to please smash the like and subscribe button. It really helps me with the algorithm and will help the channel a lot. Also, if you guys could please stay to the end, that would be awesome as well. I'm going to be asking some questions because I am quite new to this. Other than that, let's get on with the video. So in this What If, we're going to be covering what if Naruto was a full Uzumaki. So to explain this, how this would happen, we're going to change Minito to a 75% Uzumaki, and Kushina would still be 100% Uzumaki. Uzumaki has been seen as a recessive gene, and Nazakaze was dominant. That's why Naruto showed the traits of his father, but still got large chakra reserves. But with both parents being more Uzumaki, Naruto would develop all the traits of an Uzumaki, which means Naruto would even have more chakra, and would have red hair. But he would have the same blue eyes like his dad. Speaking about his dad, let's talk about his childhood. Minito would still be 75% Uzumaki, and he would have all the Uzumaki traits like the red hair, but he would also still have the blue eyes, which would come from his Namikaze side. He would still be an orphan who was a prodigy. He had a harder childhood due to his hair. Kids would call him similar names like they did to Kushina, like Tomato and such. When Kushina came to the village and became a new transfer student, they would be a lot better friends than they were in canon. Kushina would accept Minito as a friend a lot quicker than she did before. And like in canon, it wasn't until when Minito saved her that they became actually involved with love. From then on, everything that happened like it did in canon would happen here. Minito would have a team, and the Nine Tails attack would go on as it did like it did in canon. Now, because Minito wasn't a full Uzumaki, he wouldn't have the chains to seal the Nine Tails, so he would still have to use the Reaper Death Seal. Also, a quick side note, he wouldn't be called the Yellow Flash, he would be called the Red Flash because of his hair. And with that, the third Hokage would still have the same role as he did in canon, and would still make the same promise to Kushina and Minito. But along from that, Naruto would still be the same kid in all aspects. He would still have the same personality, but as in the villagers, they hated him as much as they did in canon. And not only that, but the kids would make fun of him more because of his red hair. He would be made fun of a lot more in general. The adults would make fun of him and treat him wrong because of the Nine Tails, and the kids would make fun of him because of his red hair and appearance. But with that, there would be other changes as well. Because Naruto was made fun of because of his appearance a lot more, with that his friend group would be even lower. But Naruto wasn't the only kid who was made fun of because of his looks in class. Of course there was Choji. Well, we all know what he was made fun of. Because Choji saw Naruto as another kid who was in the same boat as he would ultimately be better friends with Naruto, which means Naruto would be closer friends with Choji and Shikamaru. But yes, he was still picked on a lot and made fun of. One of the other main characters that somewhat made fun of him was Kiba, because, well, that's just him. He wouldn't do it as much as the other kids, because him and Naruto somewhat acted the same way anyways. But they wouldn't be as good as friends as they were in canon. But Naruto would recognize that he didn't make fun of him as much as the others did. With Sasuke, everything would go as it was in canon. Sasuke would still have the same attitude towards Naruto, and that would be the same for Hinata. Hinata would still watch over Naruto after he saved her life like he did in canon. But Naruto wouldn't pay as much attention to her because she was quiet as Shino. So Naruto didn't really pay attention to her. As for the other characters, well, most of them would still be the same. Sakura would still treat Naruto like trash, but would not make fun of his looks because she knew how badly it felt when somebody made fun of her forehead. So she saw how Naruto felt when he was made fun of because of his hair. But she would still see him as the same idiot like she did in canon. But that's why Naruto would have the same crush as he did on canon for Sakura. And he had another reason. And that reason was because he saw that she was the only girl that didn't make fun of him because of his looks. So that's why Naruto liked Sakura. In most of his free time, he would do the same as he did in canon. He'd also leave class when he could with Shikamaru and Choji. He would still read comic books and think of ways to pull pranks. But, of course, Shikamaru kind of taught Naruto how to calm down. So this Naruto wouldn't be as loud as canon Naruto. This was kind of how Shikamaru taught Choji to calm down, called him fat. So even though Naruto thought of pranks, he really didn't commit to them as much. And he wouldn't do any of the big and obnoxious ones like painting over the Hokage's faces. Overall, by the time of graduating, he'd be a bit more mannered, but he would still be loud at times. If you remember any of the flashbacks of him being loud or pulling pranks, he would still pull those same pranks, but overall it was just a lot less. But Naruto would still fail the exam many times. He would still pull off the sexy jutsu like in canon, but he would still have a hard time with the regular transformation jutsu and the illusion shadow clone jutsu. He never asked Shikamaru to teach him because Shikamaru was always too lazy and Choji was always eating. And from what Naruto knew, the only thing Choji really knew about was mainly food. So he would still have the same amount of difficulty as he did in canon. But he would be a bit better with ninjutsu. Being with friends who had parents teaching them cool jutsu, Naruto was inclined to learn one jutsu of his own. And because Naruto's affinity is wind, and Naruto is more of an offensive fighter, I thought Naruto would probably learn Wind Bullet. It's a very easy jutsu to learn, and I think even with Naruto's messed up chakra control, he could learn that easily. But it would be a bit imperfect due to his lack of chakra control. And to wrap this segment up, we'll just say that Choji, Naruto, and Shikamaru were all really close. Now we pick up the day of the exams. Naruto failed again, and would be on that same swing. Naruto would go home and have the same conversation between him and Mizuki. They would have the same conversation that they did in canon. Naruto would talk about how much he wants to graduate, and Mizuki tells him about the Forbidden Scroll, and how if Naruto wants to graduate, he needs to use it. And Naruto would do so like he did in canon. And Naruto would then learn the multi-shadow clone jutsu in the forest. And the same thing that happened in canon would happen here. Mizuki would tell Naruto the truth and try to take the scroll. And Iruka would come in to protect Naruto as per canon. But Naruto would come back to show what he learned. And instead of doing 1,000 shadow clones, he would do 2,000 just to assert his dominance. And thus, the same thing would happen like it did in canon. Naruto would graduate to Genin and would eat with Iruka later, after Iruka healed and everything. And in that conversation, Naruto would tell Iruka about his dreams, and thus they would become closer. Like in canon, what follow up is Naruto meeting Konohamaru, and everything would play out exactly the same as it did in canon. As you guys can see, not a lot of differences happen. The only change would be that Naruto would tell Konohamaru about his two friends he made, because Konohamaru talked about his lack of friends. Naruto would also show the Wind Bullet and Shadow Clone, and later use the sexy jutsu when Konohamaru's teacher pops up. Next day, the teams would be made up. Because Naruto was really good friends with Choji and Shikamaru, he would stick with them when they got into the classroom. Which means Naruto and Sasuke wouldn't kiss. I'm pretty sure y'all wanted that to happen, but it won't happen here. When Naruto team gets called out, he has a bit of excitement because his crush is on his team. But when he looks at her, he's bummed out. She's sitting next to the guy she ultimately likes, and he isn't with his friends that he was so closely with. Choji and Shikamaru would be a little bummed out as well. Shikamaru would do his usual "what a drag" moment, and Choji would just go, "Aww." Naruto would look at them and would sigh. He wouldn't even get angry as he did in canon. He would just be a little bummed out that he wasn't with his friends. What even made him more bummed out was that both of his friends would be together. In honesty, he would feel left out. I know we've all felt that way, like when you're supposed to do a group project but you're the only one who wasn't in the group with all your friends. Yeah, that's how Naruto is feeling right now. After the teams were assigned, the next day Kakashi would be late and Naruto here would be himself. And from here goes the rest like it did in canon. Naruto pulls the prank, they later go on with their goals, and Kakashi tells them to meet at the training grounds and not to eat breakfast. And the next morning would be the same. Kakashi is late as usual and would tell them about the bell test. Naruto would be worried about failing a little more than he did in canon, and Sasuke and Sakura would feel the same. And the bell test would go a little bit the same as it did in canon, except with Naruto throwing a couple of wind bullets here and there. Sasuke seeing this would make him a bit paranoid. That one of the worst kids in their class learned a jutsu that was probably as good as one of his, the Phoenix Fire Jutsu. But like in canon, Naruto would be bodied by Kakashi. With that, the rest would happen like canon, and Naruto and his teammates would pass the bell test while Kakashi was teaching them about teamwork. Now from what I've seen since the bell test, Naruto and his team did very low level missions for a month, with Naruto begging to do bigger missions. With training, the only thing to note that Naruto finished being able to aim with his wind bullets, and he can shoot 2 at a time. Now one thing to note is that Naruto learned a bit more patience and a bit more chill, so he wouldn't be begging as much as he did in canon. That also led to the team doing missions a lot more quicker. One day, when Naruto quickly asked the third Hokage if they could get a bigger and better mission, the third Hokage would actually accept this time. In this, Naruto's team did a lot of the missions better and quicker. With that, the third Hokage would have a better reason for Naruto's team to do the Land of Waves mission. Due to their times and their overall world performance, it was thought that they would probably escort Inusa in a good amount of time without any difficulty. And this was just in their performance range. And with that, the Land of Waves arc would start. They would set off on their journey and would head towards their destination. Of course, the dudes that attacked in canon would attack again in a similar manner. They would appear to kill Kakashi, and Sasuke would barely save Naruto's life. And Kakashi would then appear and finish them off just like in canon. Naruto was kinda sliced and their claws were filled with poison. But Naruto would stab his hand to make the poison bleed out quicker, and would say the same epic speech like he did in canon. Kakashi would look at Naruto's hand and see how it was already almost healed. This was the first time where Kakashi noticed the Nine Tails power. After crossing a lake, they would be near their destination and would be on a forest path for Tazuna. And then Kakashi would yell, "Everyone take cover!" And that's it. That's the end of part 1 of What If Naruto Was an Uzumaki. I know it wasn't really that exciting, but I promise that next episode will be a lot better. This is my first What If, so it's going to be a bit iffy. If you have any recommendations, just please comment down below, and leave a like so the algorithm will notice me. Other than that, Anime Steak out. Can I say that yet?